There is a particular weight to standing at the threshold of a throne room. I do not mean the physical weight, though there is that too: the bearskin, the tunic, the rifle held at carry, the stone floor that transmits cold through the soles of your boots after the second hour. I mean the weight of what the post represents. Those gilded double doors at your back are not merely wood and gilt. They are a line. Everything on one side is the business of the house. Everything on the other side is not, unless the house says otherwise. My job on the evening I am about to describe was to know the difference. It sounds simple. I had stood that post 41 times before the night in question, and it had always been simple. No one tests the threshold of a throne room lightly. No one, as a rule, walks up to those doors and demands entry without having arranged it well in advance. But rules, I have learned, are written for the average man. They are not always observed by powerful ones. The occasion was the autumn convocation. Every senior officer of the House of Keldreth gathered inside those doors to hear the season's appointments read aloud. It was a formal proceeding, strictly regulated, the guest roster countersigned by 2 officers and sealed by the household registrar 4 days in advance. My orders were clear. Admit those on the warrant, defer to the palace constable on any dispute, and hold the post. 3 sentences. The entire briefing. By 1/4 to the hour, the antechamber behind me had emptied. The last of the authorized guests had filed through. The registrar had closed his ledger, nodded at me once, and gone inside. The doors were shut. I stood at ease, though ease at that post is a relative concept: spine straight, eyes level, rifle vertical, the great arch above me letting in a draft that carried the smell of torch oil and old stone. I heard him before I saw him. Lord Chamberlain Osric Vane had a particular quality of movement, quick, purposeful, the stride of a man accustomed to rooms clearing ahead of him. His footsteps came up the corridor at a pace that told me he was late and annoyed about it. When he came around the turn of the arch and into the antechamber, his expression confirmed both. He was in full formal dress, the blue sash of his office cutting across the white of his collar, silver buttons catching the torchlight. He was a tall man, broad in the shoulders, with gray at the temples and eyes that had spent decades scanning a room and calculating what each person in it was worth to him. He did not slow down. "Stand aside," he said. "I am expected." I did not move. "My lord, the roster closed at the 1/4 hour. I would need to see the countersigned warrant." He stopped 2 paces from me. He looked at me the way powerful men sometimes do, not with anger, not yet, but with the particular blankness of someone recalibrating. They look at you and see the uniform, and for a moment they are deciding whether the uniform is a real obstacle or a formality. "I am Lord Chamberlain Vane," he said. "I hardly require a warrant to enter the convocation." "My lord, every entry past this threshold requires the countersigned warrant this evening. Those are my orders." He reached into his coat and produced a folded paper. He held it out without looking at it, the way a man hands something to a servant. I took it. I unfolded it. I read it. The warrant bore his name. It bore the seal of his office. It did not bear the counter-signature of the household registrar. I refolded it and held it back to him. "My lord, this warrant is not countersigned. I cannot admit entry on an incomplete authorization." The blankness left his face. "That," he said quietly, "is an administrative oversight. I have served this house for 19 years. You are going to step aside." "My lord, I am not. I would be glad to summon the palace constable who can." "I am not interested in the constable." He took 1 step closer. We were now at a distance I could have reached out and touched his shoulder. "I am telling you that I will be inside those doors in the next 30 seconds. You will not obstruct a senior officer of this house, guardsman. Do you understand me?" I understood him perfectly. That was the problem, or rather, it was the answer. He was not confused about what I was doing. He knew exactly what I was doing and had decided it did not apply to him. That decision, that particular brand of certainty, was the thing I had been posted to answer. I looked at him. I held his gaze, which not many people do when they are being told that 30 seconds remain. I said, "My lord, my orders are the warrant and the post. You are welcome to make your case to the palace constable. I will not step aside." He said nothing for a moment. Then he moved. Not toward me exactly. It was the step of a man who has decided the conversation is over, and the door is the next logical object in his path. He moved as though I were furniture he had decided to walk around. I shifted, not backward, sideways, a single measured step that placed my shoulder between him and the door handle. The rifle remained vertical. My hands did not change their grip. I did not push him. I did not speak. I simply occupied the space he intended to occupy, and I held it. He stopped. There is a moment in these situations, and I have been told by older men of the regiment that it always comes, when the powerful man realizes that the obstruction is not going to resolve itself, that the thing in front of him is not a formality, not a performance, not something that yields to rank or will. He realizes it is a post, and a post, by its nature, does not negotiate. Vane realized it then. I watched it move through him, not as defeat, not as humility, but as a kind of cold recalculation. He stepped back. He straightened his sash. "You will regret this," he said. I did not answer that. It was not a question, and it required no response. I reached inside my tunic and activated the summons signal, a small device clipped to my cross strap, connected to the constable's station at the far end of the corridor. A single press. A single pulse. 30 seconds if the duty constable was at his station. He was. The palace constable, a compact man named Aldrin, came around the arch at a brisk walk, took in the scene with a practiced eye, and addressed Lord Vane with the precise and unhurried courtesy of a man who has navigated far stormier encounters than this one. He asked to see the warrant. He examined it. He confirmed what I had found. He explained, in terms that were neither warm nor cold but simply factual, that an incomplete authorization could not be honored at the threshold of a formal proceeding, and that the matter could be resolved with the registrar's counter-signature at the registrar's office on the eastern corridor, which remained staffed for exactly such contingencies. Lord Vane listened. He said nothing further to me. He straightened again, smoothed his coat, and walked with Aldrin back the way he had come. I turned back to face the doors. The antechamber was empty. The torches moved in the draft. The gilt on the doors caught the light in long, warm lines. I returned my rifle to carry, set my shoulders, and stood. Vane did not return that evening. I learned later, through the ordinary gossip of the household, that the registrar had been located, that the counter-signature had been obtained, and that Vane had entered the convocation some 20 minutes after the reading began. He had been admitted in due course by the correct authorization, through the correct procedure. The House had held. I was never told what passed between Vane and the constable, or between Vane and the registrar. I did not need to know. Those things were beyond my post. My post was the door. People sometimes ask, when they hear this story, whether I was afraid, whether a man of Vane's position could have made things difficult for me afterward. And the honest answer is that on the night itself, those questions did not enter my mind. Not because I lacked imagination, and not because I was certain of the outcome, but because the moment you start calculating your own position while standing a post, you have already left the post. You cannot hold a line from outside it. The job that evening was not to judge Lord Vane, or to embarrass him, or to make a point about rank and authority. The job was the threshold, the sealed warrant, the orders given 4 days prior by men with the authority to give them. I was the last inch between those orders and the room they were meant to protect, and the only question that mattered was whether that inch would hold. It held. There are men in this regiment, older than me now, most of them retired to quieter lives, who will tell you that the hardest posts are not the ones where someone raises a hand at you, or shouts in your face, or calls you a decoration rather than a soldier. Those posts are hard in the way a sprint is hard. The difficulty has a shape to it. You meet it and it ends. The hard posts, the ones that stay with you, are the ones where the man on the other side of the line is not a drunk or a bully or a fool, where he is educated, powerful, and completely certain that the exception he requires is reasonable, where every instinct of ordinary social life, deference to rank, the path of least friction, the voice inside you that says this one time will not matter, lines up in favor of letting him through. Those are the posts that test what the uniform actually means. I cannot tell you that I was certain, standing at that threshold, that I was right. Certainty, in my experience, is a thing that arrives later. What I had in the moment was only the order and the post and a clear understanding of what I had been placed there to do. That was enough. When my relief arrived at the top of the next hour and I handed off the position, I walked down the eastern corridor, turned in my summons device at the station, and went to the barracks to clean my boots. The doors behind me were still closed. The convocation was still in session. The house was still standing. That, in the end, is what a post is for.